After riding 3,000 kilometers in a bikepacking adventure across South America, here are some things that stood out for me, things that worked, and things I would definitely do again. And honestly, some of them I only learned the hard way. But hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and not repeat them when you do a bikepacking adventure this year. Knowing what to carry on a bikepacking trip comes down to experience, trial and error, and not being afraid to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and learn from others as well. All trips have different requirements, but 2 weeks living on a bike pushed my experience and knowledge to the limit. But thankfully, I got through pretty much unscathed. But there are a few things I would do again if I was doing that adventure again or doing another unsupported long distance ultra ride this year. It's very easy to overpack. You have to be fairly brutal about what you actually need, the bare essentials when it comes to clothing, tools and spare parts. Trying to keep the weight of the bike as low as possible makes a big difference. A few kilos here or there can make a big difference when you're riding 10 and 12 hours a day. And that does come down to experience. You'll probably make a few mistakes on your first trip, as I've done in the past, and just carry around stuff you never actually need or use during that trip, and it's just extra weight. My bike here, which I used for 2 weeks, riding across Patagonia, weighed about 23 kilos with no water, which is definitely on the heavy side, but it's not heavy, a carbon frame and carbon wheels. But I rode with one person on a Canyon Gristle whose bike weighed 18 kilograms, so a 5 kilogram difference between my bike and his bike. So either he was carrying too little, or I was carrying too much, or one of us got it right. So really try and be conscious about what you're packing. Make sure you're only packing what you only really need. And my general rule with packing is to make sure everything I'm packing I'll use at least once during the trip. There are, of course, parts you won't hopefully use, like the punch repair kit and spare tubes. Those are non-negotiables. But when it comes to clothing and other items outside of those spare parts and clothing, you want to make sure everything you're carrying you will use at least once, if not more, because everything you are carrying on the bike has to justify, earn its place in the bags and as part of the overall weight, and it has to be used at least once, if not more, to earn its place in your bike build. Clothing is a big part of what you pack and don't pack, and I make sure to pack clothing that work both on the bike and off the bike. So lightweight trousers and long sleeve top that I can wear when camping and in the evening in lodging, but also could wear on a bike if it's cold or raining. I started some morning rides with my puffer coat on, which I'm wearing in the evenings, off the bike as well. It's very tempting to take a lot of clothing for off the bike, but you're not spending much time off the bike. I was riding up to 12 hours a day and not really sleeping much at all. So you don't really need to carry much stuff off the bike because you're spending 12 hours just lugging around that off-bike clothing. And I took this to the extreme on advice from Josh Ibbott, a very experienced ultra distance rider, in not carrying spare shoes or flip-flops or sandals as many people did in this event. The only pair of shoes I had for the entire 2 weeks were my bike shoes. And to be honest, when I got to my lodging or when I camped for the night, it was a blessing to not have any shoes on my feet and didn't need normal shoes off the bike at all. I got around just fine with my mountain bike shoes. So yeah, they looked a bit odd when you're walking around the supermarket, but one big item not to carry, a pair of trainers or a pair of flip-flops, it's not only sort of heavy, but quite bulky as well. So trying to minimize stuff you really don't need and just take the absolute essentials. Another big one is planning. Planning is very important in an event like this in terms of logistics, your bike, your clothing, and your daily mileage estimations and food and resupply points. But you have to stay flexible and have an ability to adapt and adopt changing scenarios based on the weather and other external factors. And I'll be honest, I didn't really have a detailed plan going into the event. I basically winged it. We had some nice route information from the organisers in Ride GPS, but I was mostly winging it for the first few days, and it's an approach that works for me. Because the downside to a plan is it can fall apart, it can unravel very quickly. If the weather's bad, you have mechanical, and then suddenly you're chasing a target, that goal, that plan that you set at home in the comfort of your home a few weeks before the event. So I like to adapt on the road to the conditions you have. The terrain might be harder than you expect. The 50 kilometers you thought might take 3 hours could take 5 hours because of the headwind and the washboard gravel. So being able to make a plan on the hoof, as it were, is an approach that works for me. Everyone's different. Some people need a detailed plan. Some people need a loose plan, like I do, and then just go with the flow. But you have to find an approach that works for you. But having some sort of loose outline for your objectives, your aim for each day and the 2 weeks is definitely important. One big motivation I found on a daily basis was I was carrying full camping equipment and camped a few times, but there were sufficient lodging opportunities on the route. And in some towns, we could use booking.com, the app, to book a lodge, Airbnb, or a hotel. And when we had that big target of a town up ahead of us, and in the morning over breakfast, using booking.com to book a hotel or a B&B, that gave me a big incentive to make that distance, sometimes 200, sometimes 300 kilometers, because I knew at the end of that long day's ride, I had a hot shower and a nice comfortable bed and somewhere to wash and dry my clothing. And that's a big incentive to do those big distances. So that sort of planning on a day, knowing where you are and where there's the next town, lodging opportunity, and then booking a hotel or some sort of accommodation, for me, is an approach that worked extremely well and gave me that motivation to get through some of the quite tough days we had and tough weather conditions and tough gravel roads and have that objective. So that, for me, worked really well, and that's definitely something I would encourage you to do. And I don't think you can book the hotels and accommodation ahead of the event itself because you've no idea how long that stage, that route might take. Today's video is sponsored by Insta360 and the latest, very compact Go Ultra, the perfect camera for filming all your bike adventures, especially if you're going bike packing and want a small, lightweight, but high quality camera. And a cool feature about this camera is how the camera itself removes from the pod. So a very small, lightweight camera you mount anywhere on the bike or on your body, on your helmet, and then when you need, put it back in the pod for charging the battery to extend the runtime, and you have a very useful screen for vlogging when you're filming to the camera or for reviewing your footage after a ride. And the video quality is super high, the audio quality great too, and you download the footage for easy editing using AI on a smartphone or a desktop, and the whole editing interface on the smartphone app is just fantastic and a breeze to make a nice easy edit from your videos, from your adventure, to share on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, all your friends and family. It really is a fantastic bit of kit. Honestly, it's one of those bits of kit that doesn't feel like filming gear. Just a great way to capture all the fun and adventures and highlights of a bikepacking trip. And you can check out the camera at the company website, linked down below. Food is another big lesson. You just have to eat constantly, all day, every hour, just keep eating. It's almost an eating competition rather than anything else. And another big tip from Josh Ibbott is just keep eating. And when you're feeling low, you're having a bad moment, just eat. And you really just eat your way through the adventure, through the bikepacking trip. And that comes down to, for me, real food. You can carry gels and hydration powder and all that sort of stuff, but you have to carry lots of it to survive 2 weeks. So for me, it was buying real food at every opportunity, whether a gas station, some little supermarket or a cafe, and any opportunity to resupply and fill up water bottles and buy more food, I took that opportunity. Because in some parts of Chile and Argentina, there's a big distance between each town or settlement or outpost, so you might not pass any opportunity for resupply for 100 kilometers. So take every opportunity you're given to resupply. Don't go past a petrol station and think, oh, I've got enough. Just stop, fill up, buy some more bars, buy a sandwich, buy some more water. Just every opportunity you get to resupply, and just keep eating. And for me, eat real food. Lots of chocolate bars and sort of flapjack bars and sandwiches. So a real mix of savory and sort of sweet bars, anything you can get, basically whatever you can get your hands on, as real as that food is, the better it is for you, and just keep eating. So for me, it wasn't about gels or hydration mixes, but real solid food as often as possible. One mistake I made was not properly testing my bike fully loaded before the event, because on day one I had some mad scary speed wobbles through the handlebars, because I found the fully loaded bike with all the food I panic bought at the supermarket the day before really upset the handling geometry of the bike, and I managed to resolve that in day 2 and day 3 by moving weight around the handlebar bag to the rear bag to better balance the weight distribution. But really, that shouldn't have happened at all. I should have solved this issue before the event, before I flew out to Chile, and it shouldn't be an issue on day one. So yeah, a real rookie mistake there. Very embarrassed it happened, but it happened, and definitely a mistake to learn from. So definitely do a full loaded simulation ride with all your kits and food and water before you fly out, before you take the bike apart, to address those issues before the race event actually starts. There's plenty to talk about on the sort of equipment side of avoiding mistakes during a bikepacking adventure. But for me, there's also the mental side. And honestly, the mental challenge of several days of the event was tougher than the physical challenge. My legs, apart from being tired and empty, never really gave me any issues, never cramped, or my knees hurt a bit towards the end, but nothing really crazy. But the mental side, that was a tough challenge.
Without a doubt, the toughest riding I've ever done on the bike. Endless washboard gravel, a headwind from hell, just a bleak vastness of it all. Every day she's been ramping up the toughness, the hardness, the gravel over the border, the roads yesterday, the arrow straight roads, and today gravel and headwind. Patagonia is famous for winds, of course, and we're getting a full treatment of wind today. I see why there's nobody here. There's nothing here. Look at that going Paul. Thankfully, I have company in Paul Williams for the last few days. Doing this on your own is tough. It's mentally a challenge. Turning the legs is one thing, but keeping your head focused when all you have ahead of you is just that. But yeah, incredible experience, incredible landscape. The challenge is amazing, but I'm looking forward to some new landscapes.
Cycling is all about highs and lows, and this event was all about highs, majestic highs, and some tough lows, and the lows were the mental aspect. And staying focused when you're riding for 10, 12 hours a day and for 2 weeks at a time is tough. It's not easy. It's way outside my comfort zone. I've never done anything like it before. And staying focused and finding a way to remind yourself what that why is when you're doing those long, pretty boring days, mentally tough days, is a real challenge. And that's something we talked about during the event with my riding partner at the time, Paul. And one thing that we decided on was, at the time, it can be tough as hell. You can't ever imagine the hell you're in ending. You're on washboard gravel, you've got a bruising headwind, and it's just demoralizing and mentally challenging. Like, why am I doing this? You just keep pushing through because you have to, because you have that goal to get to the next checkpoint or the next town. But we were reminded that no matter how bad it is, no matter how tough it is, it will end at some point, and there will be the bright, sunny uplands on the other side of that mental low. The wind will finally relent, or the road will get smoother, or it'll be a nice downhill, the sun will come out and it'll warm up, or you find a nice cafe or a gas station, or you reach your overnight lodging and a hot shower and a nice comfortable bed, and you'll suddenly be in a better place than you were a few hours ago, in that period when you couldn't imagine that suffering ever ending. So just remembering that when it is tough, when the times are tough, that it won't last forever. You will get through them and it will be better soon. Just have to keep going, keep pedaling, find some way to stay focused, have conversation with people around you, have some music, podcasts, just occupy your mind during those low moments. Because yeah, during an event like this, like I say, highs and lows, and the highs were amazing and easy to enjoy riding a bike, but the lows were a real challenge. and they were a bigger challenge for me. So just find a way to stay focused and keep pedaling. And finally, through it all, it's easy to forget to enjoy it. It's a privilege to do these events, to travel halfway around the world and take part in a bikepacking adventure, or even do a local bikepacking adventure. So remember to smile and enjoy it, even when you're suffering, even when the weather pelting you with rain and wind and snow. Remember, it's fun. There are worse ways to spend your time. So yeah, no matter how much you're suffering, try and remember to enjoy it, and that you sign up for this, you pay for it, or you entered it, or you embarked on your own self-planned trip with your friends or solo. So remember to try and enjoy it, because cycling is a pretty awesome sport, and bikepacking is a great thing to do. I love bikepacking. The freedom from the world of stress and demands, and that how liberating living on a bike is. Just the bare essentials, you and your bike and a few important items, and you ride all day and cover amazing distances and see amazing landscapes and see amazing people and wildlife. It's just wonderful. So get out there this year, do a bikepacking trip, don't make my mistakes, learn from my mistakes, and you'll have a great time. But those are some advice, not really advice, just some lessons I learned from this event and stuff I want to share with you, because I've learned from other people more experienced than me on YouTube and website articles. I want to share my sort of take on what's important when going bikepacking. So do let me know what you think of the video, any tips, and if you're a bikepacking regular, let me know what is important to you when doing a bikepacking trip like this. But that's all for now. If you want to see a full bike check on the bike I use, that video is linked right there. And of course, make sure you're subscribed by hitting that button right there. And of course, don't forget to check out the latest Insta360 Go Ultra camera, perfect for filming bikepacking adventures. Got a small camera that pops out, you put it anywhere on the bike, on your body, on your helmet, and then you've got this pod for charging the battery, got a USB-C connection, got a nice flip-up screen for vlogging or for reviewing your footage. The video quality is just amazing. The sound quality good too. Just shoots in low different modes. Got your pure video for filming at night. Really smooth, silky smooth stabilization for when you're rocking down a rough trail. And you can get it onto your smartphone and edit it through the app very easily with AI. Do some nice edits for social media and your friends. So yeah, very good camera. Check out the link down below in the description of today's video. But that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.